is real talk, baby, and we're feeling fine.
Hey there, movie minions. Welcome back to Real Talk, the show that dives deep into upcoming film projects by two guys who watch a lot of movies. I am Jason Emmett, and with me, as always, the one and only Twisted Kid Matt.
Hey.
What's happening, Matt?
Just going through some stuff, man. Just read a comic that kind of hit me hard. We're about to talk about.
It hurt him. Yesterday, as of the recording of this, yesterday was Free Comic Book Day, and Matt went out and purchased the sequel to The Last Ronin, which I had just purchased myself, and I'm about halfway through that, so he's going to be picking that up. And yeah, we're going to be talking about The Last Ronin today, along with some other stuff. To me, this is a really cool topic, one near and dear to my heart. We're going to be discussing the theatrical Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle films, and like I said, more important, the upcoming adaptation, the R-rated adaptation of The Last Ronin they are currently working on. I thought it'd be kind of cool to start with our first introduction to the Turtles and where and when we first discovered the amazing world of TMNT.
Real quick, before we get into that, are we doing any kind of spoilers for The Last Ronin?
No. Should we? I don't know. Should we? No, I don't think we should. There's, it's been out for a little while, but I still want people to experience it fresh. Like,
I feel like it's kind of growing in awareness, not just popularity, but awareness. Like I didn't even know it was a thing until fairly recently when we, we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that. Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
That was cool. That was very cool. Mm-hmm. So my first introduction to the Turtles was the comic books. Actually, I had a buddy in middle school who was a fan, and he hands me issue number 3, which is where I started, and my love for the Turtles started like right then and there. After that, for me, I went on, moved forward. But where were you introduced? How were you introduced, I guess, to the Turtles? Was it through comics or cartoon, or?
I would say it was through the original cartoon, which was I was all about that. I'd started getting all the toys and everything. I actually still have a bunch of them down in the basement. But yeah, that was my introduction, was the cartoons. And I'm a little younger than you guys, so I didn't really get into comics as much until I was a little bit older, but cartoons were definitely my thing.
What I heard is, listen, you old shit.
Yeah. No, I was the kid sitting
around for their comics.
Yeah. No, I was around. I just, couldn't read yet.
Well, in all fairness, I was introduced to the comics maybe 6 months before the cartoon came out. It just was happenstance and happenstance and luck that happened for me.
Yeah.
So the cartoon came out in 1987, right? And this cartoon just like rocked the world. Like no one knew what to make of it. And they had taken a comic book that was really dark and made it for kids, but we'll get into some of that in a second when we talk about some other things. But this show, actually, it had 10 seasons. I didn't even realize the show ran 10
seasons.
10 seasons. It's actually one of the most popular animated series in television history. Again, these are things I should have known, but I really didn't really pay attention to. Now, of course, that because it was so popular, had such a draw, they started discussing doing a film pretty early on, and I think they knew right from the get-go they wanted to do a live action movie. They didn't want to do an animated. So the first live action version of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie came out in 1990. So just 3 years after the original. And it had a very small budget when it came out. I think if you want to play a clip, we have like a clip that can play in the background, but the movie had like a very small budget. It was not like a big budget. It was like 13.5 million. And it made 202 million. So
it's one of the highest grossing independent films of all time.
It was number one. I think Blair Witch Project is what finally knocked it off. Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And this movie was produced by Golden Harvest, and they did the smartest thing ever. They had the Jim Henson Creature Shop make the suits, which was a brilliant idea because they just looked fantastic. Like they looked good. And I know Jim Henson had said at the time, he said, quote, "These were the most advanced that he had ever worked with." So he also kind of stated these were some of the most difficult things he ever made. Unfortunately, he passed away 2 months after the movie released. to make things even more sad, he didn't like the movie.
Yeah. So it was too violent.
He didn't realize it was going to be as violent as it was. He thought it was going to be more like the cartoon.
But I'll tell you, they hold up, man. Like, I watched it the other day, and this movie holds up. Like, it looks fantastic. There's a couple little janky parts, but
sure. But imagine if they did this today, which we're going to get in a whole topic about that, but just slightly enhanced some of it with CG, but kept the realism. Like, they had guys in suits fighting. It was amazing. Like, it was, including
it's impressive, man. Like, they're doing high kicks in full body latex suits. Like,
you know, one of those guys is Ernie Reyes Jr.
Oh, yes.
They liked him so much in the filming of this, they put him in the second movie as his own character, which I thought was really cool. Yeah. So this movie was offered to like a number of major studios to distribute, and they all turned it down. They were all afraid because Masters of the Universe had just come out like 3 years before and it tanked, right? So everybody turned this down. So while they're still in the middle of production, New Line Cinemas, who at the time was no one, like they were nobodies. And this is like, I don't think people know New Line Cinema now, but like they were nothing, but they agreed to do it. They agreed to distribute this movie. And it was one of the first movies that made them a butt ton of money. It kind of helped set them up.
Yeah. So it was, I think Nightmare on Elm Street and like some like art house films was all they had really done. And then they put this out. So Freddy Krueger kind of started New Line Cinema. Like
Freddy Krueger kept New Line alive.
Yeah. They were actually referred to New Line as the house that Freddy built.
Yes.
Because of that.
And this was one of the first movies that, I mean, made them a ton of money. Mm-hmm. So the Freddy movies kept them afloat and kept a steady income coming in, if you kind of catch my drift. And then this movie, they banked on it. Worked. Yeah. I vividly remember seeing this in theaters. I loved it. Like instantly. We were just talking about the practical effects, and they looked good. They combined story from the first issue of the comic book into the movie, like something insane. So in the first comic, in the first series, and we will spoil this, Shredder dies because they didn't know there was going to be a second. And so they kill him in the book or in the movie the exact same way he dies in the comic.
I've never read any of the original run of the comics. So. They're
great. You can pick up a trade now that has reissued them all in the one trade paperback. It's wonderful. It's great.
I may have to do. I'm gonna say something a little sacrilegious to comic fans. I prefer trade paperbacks. I prefer
it depends.
Like a whole, like give me the whole story so I can sit down and read it all at one time and be done with it.
Depends on the series. I mean, sometimes I like to read issue to issue, but if there's so much going on, I want to read the story. Like I want to sit down and read it kind of like you do. So I love trade paperbacks. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And especially something that came out in like 85, 86. Yeah. What are you going to do, man?
Yeah. Something's kind of hard to find and a little rare.
It's going to cost you a ton if you try
to reissue it and you can get it for like $20, like, yeah, I get the whole thing. It's fine.
So a majority of the story in the first movie is straight out of the comics. So
yeah,
I mean, toned down.
They kind of took, the comic and the cartoon and
they
melded together and turned it into comics. Yeah,
they took the comic storyline and they lightened it up a little for, and that's why it worked so well. I mean, they were smart about it. Unlike 1991. 1991, we had Secret of the Ooze.
I got a soft spot.
I got a soft spot for it. Cult following. I was really let down by this movie when I saw it. They went too heavy into the goofy side of things. They dropped all seriousness from the movie, and of course they shoved Vanilla Ice into it, which just took me right out.
Man, go Ninja, go!
It didn't do nearly as well. The budget for it was $25 million, and it grossed just under $80 million. So the first one was $13 million, grossed $200 million. This one grossed just under 80. Now there are two characters in this movie I always wondered about, which were Razar and Toka. I was like, why did they put them in instead of Rocksteady and Bebop? I never really understood why that was. My question for you, Matt, is do you know why they put Razar and Toka in the movie instead of Rocksteady and Bebop?
I feel like I do. I think they were like trying to lead into them eventually.
So no, I just found this out. Um, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird hated the characters of Rocksteady and Bebop, and they did not. They said, "No, we don't want them in the movie because their quote, their constant one note shtick in the first animated series was extremely annoying and silly to the point of being stupid. So they just thought they were too dumb of characters to be in, and so instead they put in."
Hang on, were they not in the comic?
No, they were not created by.
I didn't know that.
Eastman and Laird.
Yeah, I thought they were in the comic and put into the cartoon.
They have since been added to the comics. So I think it's funny that basically Eastman and Laird didn't like Rocksteady and Bebop because they thought they were ridiculous characters, and so they didn't want them in a movie. It's also a little insulting that then they're like, okay, well, we understand. We'll put these even more ridiculous characters in the movie. Because at this point, Eastman and Laird didn't really have control anymore. They had sold rights, but they did have some say in some things. So, yeah, we got Razar and Toka. I didn't like them till later in some of the animated stuff. I hated them in the movie.
Making them, spoiler alert for Ninja Turtles 2, making them babies.
They were
just weird.
They were they were like little babies. Yeah, I didn't really like this movie much, Matt. You said that this movie kind of had a soft spot in your heart. I assume because you were young when it came out. And turtle action.
Oh yeah, it was just like more turtles. Hell yeah! Oh, Vanilla Ice is in this. The number one hip hop star of all time at the point.
I will. At full disclosure, I freaking love the look of Super Shredder, which was Kevin Nash, and he wasn't originally supposed to be in it. It was supposed to be somebody else, and something happened, and he got the role. And
I feel like he's in it for like 2 minutes.
And has become.
By the way that film ends, I literally had to like rewind it a few things. Like, did I miss something? It just kind of ends.
Yeah,
in part 2. Like I remember Super Shredder being in it a lot more than he actually is.
No, he's really not in it much. Yeah. But become a hugely famous popular character because of that small amount. 1993, we got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. This movie did even worse. The budget was $21 million, ranked in $54.4 million. Took the Turtles back in time to feudal Japan. Reviews were mostly negative, but personally, and I'm not saying I thought it was good, I enjoyed it slightly more than Secret of the Ooze, just because I think they took the story and made it a little more serious. Matt, you don't really, you said you weren't really as big a fan of this one.
Yeah, I think I only watched it once when it first came out, and then on my rewatch that I did this past week, I couldn't make it through without falling asleep, and I still haven't gone back and actually finished it. It's not that it was bad; it was just
it's slow.
It didn't grab my attention. It was a little bit more boring. So
it does have some really slow parts, and it's not great. Look, it's not great. I think they made this based off the popularity of the Turtles in Time game. That would have been a cool plot. They don't really do that. It's not the plot they do, but I still think that might have had something to do with it.
I do like that they kind of built up on April and Casey Jones's relationship, and it's from what I remember, because I was in and out of sleep at the time watching this, it felt like there was this like across time love connection happening between them, which was kind of interesting. And we'll get into Last Ronin chat later on, because I think it leads into that as well too.
Absolutely. I mean, their relationship has always been a thing, and that definitely comes to fruition in Last Ronin. I mean, we're going to see that.
Yeah.
So this movie did not do nearly as well. They had planned a fourth movie that they were going to call The Foot Walks Again. That movie never actually happened. Would have been kind of cool. Peter Laird released concept designs after that for a version he called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4: The Next Mutation. That never happened either. I do want it to be known that it was not the same of the live action 97 TV series, The Next Mutation, that ended up coming out, where they introduced a female turtle. That was it. That was our movie. What was
the female turtle called, by the way?
Venus. Yeah,
Venus de Milo. Yeah.
Which always made me think of Vera de Milo from In Living Color. All I could ever see was Jim Carrey, and so.
Oh God, that's right. Yeah.
So that was it. That was it. We got nothing else to the theaters until 2007. 2007, we got TMNT. I love TMNT. Matt, you've never seen this, correct?
I have not, but I do in fact own a copy of it.
So
It's actually in a box set with the first 3 live action films that I have.
if we play the little clip, one of the things I like about this is they did a CGI movie. They did not make it. They made it a continuation almost of the first film, of the first 1990 film. So this is not an origin story. I love the look of the turtles in this movie. They just assumed that all the stuff that happened in the other movies happened. I love the way they look in this. This movie has a great cast behind it. Chris Evans does Casey Jones. Sarah Michelle Gellar is April O'Neil. Nolan North has a role in this, which is really cool as well. This was actually Mako. This was Mako's last film before he passed away. Patrick Stewart has a voice in this, and Lawrence Fishburne is the narrator on this movie. We actually, I said this is probably one of my favorite theatrical adaptations after the original. We had the opportunity once to speak to Kevin Eastman, and I asked him about this when we got to chat with him, and he agrees with me. He thinks this is one of the better adaptations to hit theaters, and he really liked what they did in the look of the turtles, which I think it got underlooked a little bit by a lot of people, including yourself, and which is weird because you like this sort of thing.
Yeah.
You're gonna love it when you watch it. I think you're gonna watch this movie and be like, okay, I'm glad. I wish I would have watched it years ago, but I just got to experience it, which is cool. And this is. Didn't you say it's in your library? Matt has
it's definitely in my library. Yeah.
Matt has an extensive library of bought movies that he's never watched.
Yeah,
it's a thing.
Yeah,
it's an obsession.
Problem. Yeah, I buy something. I'm like, I'm gonna watch that. Like, there's a story I tell every once in a while. I bought a copy of The Godfather probably about 20 years ago on DVD, put it on the shelf, didn't even take it out of the plastic, and then I don't think I'm ever going to watch this movie. And I still haven't watched it. I actually sold the DVD copy because I was like, if I ever want to watch it, I'll just stream it, because it's not something I'm going to own, apparently, because it's not something I'm ever going to put into a DVD or Blu-ray player. So
he's a weird collector, man.
I'll collect something and then just be like, yeah, that's something I'm gonna have, and then it just sits on a shelf until I just get tired of looking at it.
TMNT, the budget was $35 million. It grossed like 96 in the box, so it wasn't what they would call a smash hit, but it didn't tank either.
I mean, I didn't even know it existed, honestly, until a couple years ago when I got the box set.
Well, like I said, sit down and watch it. Let me know your thoughts, but I think you're going to like it a lot. There were plans for a part 2 that they loosely adapted to a run of the comics called City at War. This is not a run that I personally ever had the chance to read. I may try to pick them up now because I kind of want to know where they wanted to go with a second movie. I know that he had talked about doing, Kevin Monroe had talked about doing a third as well, a second and third, and the third he wanted to introduce the Triceratons into it. But basically what ended up happening is Kevin Monroe parted ways with the studio he'd been working with, and that was pretty much the end of any discussion, which is kind of a bummer because Kevin Eastman had said he wanted them to do a live action sequel to the 2007 one with Sarah Michelle Gellar as April O'Neil and Chris Evans as Casey Jones, which would have been kind of cool.
Yeah.
But again, didn't really happen. Because why listen to the genius mind who created one of the biggest franchises of all time when you can just let Michael Bay come in and make giant bulletproof turtles with weird ass noses.
Yeah.
Weird noses.
And like a weird tribalistic, body armor situation as well, too.
Like nightmare fuel looking.
Yeah. Like beady little eyes and nostrils.
Well, they look like
into their brains with.
Like they look like cats.
Yeah.
They don't look like turtles. It's a weird concept design. I don't really know.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Kitties.
I'm surprised that didn't happen. This one came out in 2014. It made a lot of money. I think in part it made money because there was a lot of controversy behind it. I thoroughly did not like this film at all. Matt, we kind of talked about this, the behind the blue door storyline, the leaked. So Michael Bay gets up at a con and says, "We're making them aliens." He literally said that out loud. Well, then
everybody went, "What?"
Yeah, people lost their minds.
Why?
I was amongst them. This was one of those why screw up a story that works thing. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
I don't get that. So the script ends up leaking online.
Not unlike the ooze that created the turtles in the first place.
The secret of the
Side note, I really like the fact that it has been confirmed that it is the same ooze that the same chemical that blinded Daredevil.
Oh, really? That's
You didn't
great.
know that? Oh no. Okay.
Who confirmed that?
Wow.
Because it's two different worlds. One
No,
is
yeah, like
Marvel,
Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird
one
have
is Mirage.
said that it is directly when the chemicals spill onto Matt Murdock, it gets down into the sewer and creates the Ninja Turtles as
So
well.
it's not like written in it. It's just sort of in their brain lore.
It's kind of in their brain lore.
That's really fun.
Yeah. No, they've
They're totally
genuinely
different.
confirmed that.
We're talking Mirage and Marvel Comics here,
Mhm.
but they've done crossovers. In fact, the Batman Turtle crossover is wonderful, and they did an animated movie of it, which is also really good.
I can't look at the fucking turtle noses anymore. I'm changing the picture. Sorry.
So what we do know about that script that was supposed to come out. The Turtles and Splinter were from another dimension. Raphael was the silly one. They took that away from Mikey for reasons I don't know. The Foot was run by a government agent named Colonel Schrader, who could grow blades out of his body. And a majority of the film was actually going to be focused on Casey Jones, a security guard hockey player who had met the Turtles.
It's just awful sounding. Like there's nothing about it. Okay,
it's funny because they keep that security guard hockey player for Casey because that's what Stephen Amell's character. Yeah.
Which I mean, that's fair. Like you got to have a
fair.
day job if you're also a hockey player, you know. But I mean, like changing the personality, like that's their one
I don't
known
get that.
thing.
I don't get that.
Leonardo's the leader. Donatello does machines according to the theme song.
Raphael
is cool but rude. And Michelangelo is the party dude.
It's a weird thing. You're right. Like out of all the things you could change, that's the weirdest. Like, why would you do that? Why? Because we want to be like different.
Yeah.
Like, but you're not. You're just flipping two characters. It's dumb. It's dumb. They've all been loved for their personalities. If
then could you picture an asshole version of Michelangelo?
No,
you can't.
In a party version of Raphael, it doesn't work.
Yeah. Alternate
Peter Laird read the script and he has come out and said, be really glad that the studios said, fuck no, you're not doing this because it's not good. And fans would have like lost their minds. I mean, the movie's not good anyway. I don't really have much to say about it. It was a disgrace in my opinion. And I'm not a fan. 2016 sequel comes out of the Shadows. Out of the Shadows is slightly better than the first. And I mean, slightly, like it's a little bit better than the first. There were a few things I did like. Stephen Amell plays Casey Jones in it. I liked that they introduced him. I liked Tyler Perry as Baxter Stockman. I thought that was some really genius casting. We did get to see Rocksteady and Bebop in this one. I actually do like their character designs and the way they look in it. I think they did okay with their look. We got to see the Technodrome. That was kind of cool. That was kind of a nice little, and it looked cool and it was fun. We didn't get a lot of Technodrome in it, but it was in it.
It's the Ninja Turtles Death Star.
But yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't really care if Michael Bay ever makes another Turtle movie again. I hope he doesn't because
Michael Bay, more like Michael Band
from
making Turtle movies.
You're not a fan either, right? Of the Michael Bay movies?
Not really, no.
No,
I mean, like, I could watch it, but I'm not gonna be like, oh, you've got to see this movie. Just cool, like, more turtle stuff. But
the amounts of things that I don't understand, like they gave them superpowers. They're bulletproof, which is ridiculous. They are 9 feet tall, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, very hard to hide a 9 foot tall turtle in New York.
Shredder is in a robotic suit where there were cool things about it, but it was ridiculous. They took all the storyline between Shredder and Splinter out, and instead Splinter taught them because he found a book laying in the sewer. That's how he taught. Come on. Just why do that? Like, I don't understand why you and April O'Neil found them and raised them. That's ridiculous. Like,
I'm gonna ask you a question. I want your genuine thought on this real quick. A little side tangent. Do you think this may have been an attempt to merge Ninja Turtles and Transformers franchises together?
God, knowing Michael Bay,
Like that may have been. I wonder if that was like the plan for part 3.
I mean, they're merging. They're going to do a Transformers G.I. Joe movie, right?
Mhm.
Which we don't. We have a video out about that if you guys want to go watch it. I just don't want him to ever make another movie or another turtle movie. I mean, he's got some movies I like.
Like he's done some okay
This was a
movies.
Failure.
Yeah.
So last year, 2023, we got Seth Rogen's Baby, which was the animated Mutant Mayhem. Slightly different bend on a few different things. I personally was not into it that much, but people really seem to dig this movie. I'm kind of glad that it did well because that means the franchise will live on. Matt, you saw this in the theaters as well?
Yep. Yeah, I saw it and I enjoyed it for the most part, but I also kind of dozed off a little bit at one point.
Me too.
Yeah, I really like the animation style and the voice actors in this. That I think was where they nailed it. However, it did drag it a few times, and I think it may have been a little overly long for what it was. But I had fun at points. I really, I'm gonna have to give it another shot and watch it all the way through.
This is the difference between what Michael Bay did and what Seth Rogen did. Seth Rogen tried to give it his own little spin. And while I didn't, those things didn't land on me, he didn't just F up the story of the Turtles. I didn't like the kind of almost like slightly pervy Splinter character.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
And I didn't like that he made certain just notorious bad guys into good guys, but I did like some of the things he did. I get where he was going. They're making a sequel. I think it'll do well. I'll go see that too. And people really like this movie, so I have respect for that. I think that Seth Rogen's heart is in the right place.
Yeah,
it just
he means well.
It landed for some people. It didn't land for me, and that's okay. I wasn't insulted by what he did. That's what I'll say.
I think he approached it from being a fan.
Yes.
And to do his version of it, not just like I can make some money off of this.
Like I said, I wasn't into it, but I wasn't insulted.
Correct. Yeah. It wasn't an offense to the entire history of the franchise.
I do 100%. I agree with what you just said. It was not an offense to the franchise. He just did a little different spin on a few things.
Yeah.
So the real reason we're here, the thing we really want to talk about for a few minutes is The Last Ronin,
which we'll talk about right after this word from our sponsors.
Head over to bustedtees.com. Find all your geeky apparel, t-shirts, hats, stickers, socks, whatever, with cool game and movie and TV inspired stuff on it. I promise you're going to like this stuff. And at checkout, if you use my code Jason25945, you're going to get 20% off. That's bustedtees.com. Promotional code Jason25945. So we're here to talk about The Last Ronin, and we're going to try to not spoil too much of it for you.
If you haven't read it, go read it.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I'm going to give a real brief synopsis. We're not going to go overboard on the synopsis because I want you to go read it. The Last Ronin basically takes place in the future.
It's like 30 years.
Has been taken over by basically the last remaining member of Shredder's family, which is his son or his grandson.
Yeah.
His grandson. It's Karai's son. All the turtles but one are dead. And this turtle has gone through some shit and he's now returning back to New York to hunt down the last remaining member. That's all I really want to say about some of that, because
feud.
You're going to find some things out pretty quickly, but it's really gut wrenching. And throughout the series, he talks to his dead brothers in his head, and it's amazing. It's tear jerking. Like it's a really cool storyline. And Kevin Eastman told us that the reason he did it was because he knew at some point, the turtles were going to continue, and one day he wouldn't be around, but they would still be around, and he wanted to be the one to give them a sort of ending, and that's kind of what he did. Sort of, and then they just started a whole new series off of it, which is great. So the live action adaptation is going to be rated R. Paramount last month announced that they were going to be doing it, and the movie itself is going to be produced by Walter Hamada. Okay, so Walter Hamada comes to us. He's the former head of DC Film Production. He has a really interesting background, having produced the 2009 Friday the 13th movie. He did the movie 47 Ronin. He did It. He did
47 Ronin and The Last Ronin.
He did the Conjuring films. He did the Joker, Shazam, a lot of additional movies. It's going to be
a decent pedigree, basically.
It's going to be written by Tyler Burton Smith. Now, Tyler Burton Smith wrote the 2019 Child's Play movie, but more importantly than that, he wrote Boy Kills World. Why I say more importantly is because the feel and the pacing of Boy Kills World works for me. Of course, it needs to be a lot more serious. If you guys haven't seen that, I also did a review on Boy Kills World.
You can watch it right up there. But
the pacing and the fight scenes are so incredible in that. Like I can see that working. And Child's Play being a lot more serious in tone, Boy Kills World being a little more tongue in cheek but serious in tone. I could see him writing this film. I think that's a good thing that we got him. So what I really want to talk to you about, Matt, is the things we don't know. What we want to see is people who have read this and love the series and the franchise in general. What do we want to see as far as aesthetics? Let's start there. What do we want the film to look like? For me, I'm going to kick this off really quick. I would love to see what they did in the original. I want to see Henson's Creature Shop back into it to create some practical. And then I want to see Weta come on board to enhance the digital side. Why I say this? Well, they've worked together already. Henson's Creature Workshop and Weta has already worked together, and Weta has a history of making really good looking stuff.
Yeah. What did they work on together? Am I just
they did? It's nothing like in the movies. They did some work on some Dark Crystal stuff.
Okay. Did they do the Netflix?
No, it's some digital stuff that went up online that Weta helped create the 3D modeling of. I'm sure they've done other stuff with them as well, but this was just some recent stuff. So they have a history together, is what I'm saying. They work well together. And since I want to see live action, I want to see them create the suits and then enhance everything with digital. That's what I would love to see. Now, budget, I don't know, but I have a feeling this movie's going to have a decent budget. So, aesthetically, look at the turtles, and we don't have a ton of turtles, so that
Now, going back to what I said about the original 1990 film. They didn't have a huge budget, and they made something that
I agree with.
Literally 30-something years later,
but that's my
point. The test of time.
I'm saying in order to do practical and have Henson and Weta, you're going to have a budget. Yeah, I imagine someone's going to have the budget to hire somebody like Weta. I just I see that happening. Look wise, you had kind of brought up, and not to the full degree. But you had mentioned Sin City. I would love to, not quite as far gone as Sin City, but like a dialed in version of that kind of look. Not fully
as
black and white. Some scenes where the colors are muted out, only certain colors are popping. That would be really cool.
That'd be really cool. And I know you and I have talked through text and everything. There are some NECA collectible figures that I have seen prior to reading The Last Ronin. That are they look like they are straight out of the comic. Right. However, one of them is a red and black colorway that looks awesome, but I recently found a white, just a black and white version of it. I want them really bad. And I'm going to track that one down.
Yeah, I want those too.
Yeah, they look really cool. Plus, there's a really awesome Funko Pop of The Last Ronin too, with the cover as a background for it.
We're going to get into this here in a second, so I guess this is a good way to kind of break it. Okay. Aesthetically, like how The Watchmen is done. The film version of The Watchmen. Like, I would love to see something kind of along those lines in this film, like that kind of aesthetic, that kind of stylized look, because I want scenes where we get close-ups of like a bandana flowing in the wind, and I want that stuff. Oh, like we need to see that stuff. It needs to be
certain. Which, by the way, not to spoil anything in The Last Ronin, because there are flashback scenes, and when you read it, you'll know what I'm talking about. They do go into the deaths of each of the turtles.
Yes. Yeah.
and I won't say who and what,
or
but
how or
they
why.
don't show which turtle it is by anything other than their weapon on the ground, as just like a symbol of they are no longer
Yeah.
alive. And it is,
And the
that
last-
right there is like a perfect still shot in that comic of like, oh shit, like part of your
we need those
childhood's dying.
shots. We
Part of
need
your
those
childhood's
shots.
dying again. Hey, more of your childhood's dying.
We need those shots in the movie, and they need
Yeah.
to be done well.
Yes.
Yeah, to represent it. Absolutely. That has
Yeah.
to be done. And there's so much with the weapons in this, because the Last Ronin is running around with literally everybody's
All of them.
weapons and using them all. And that, like, it's such an important part,
Mhm.
because like you said, and
there's
I
a
believe-
moment where he finally breaks out his own.
yeah, it's dude, it's intense.
Yeah.
And this movie's I'm so glad R rating, because you got it, and it's just going to be violence.
It's going to need it.
The
Yeah.
violence needs to be there. I'm sorry, it just does.
Yeah.
So one of the things you and I have been discussing, and it's been a big hot topic online, is who should direct this movie. And I know we both have our opinions on that. So let's kind of go over there. I want to throw a couple names out that I thought about, like Edgar Wright. I thought would be a lot of fun. I think Edgar Wright would be a lot of fun to do this. I don't know
Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, World's End,
which are all comedies,
Scott
but
Pilgrim. He did Scott Pilgrim based on a comic.
I think given the right dramatic stuff, he could do it.
Mhm.
Guillermo del Toro was definitely high on my list. When I consider Hellboy and Pan's Labyrinth, I'm like, I would be totally okay with it. Blade 2, he did Blade 2.
Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, I think is an incredible movie.
Yeah,
like it
wonderful.
looks great. It's
Wonderful.
acted great. Doug Jones is amazing, has multiple characters in it. Yeah, it's so good.
But for me, my final choice was Chad Stahelski, who he would be near the top on my list. He has worked on the John Wick films, and the fact that he was part of the original Crow movie, I think would be kind of a great, because I could see that aesthetic going into this too.
Yeah.
If they're going to go mainstream, though, somebody a little more known, I know this could be controversial, but I could see Snyder. Like I mentioned, Watchmen. I know people weren't really into his DC stuff, but 300, Sucker Punch, Dawn of the Dead, all of these kind of have a feel about them. He likes the darker stuff, which I think would work well for these movies. But that's kind of where I went. You picked somebody different, and I actually really, really like your pick.
Yeah.
After you said him, I was like, that would be really good too.
Yeah. And when I said this person, I did not realize the connection that was there. But my pick was Rodriguez, who did direct Sin City and all that. And I told Jay through text, I was like, I think my pick might be Robert Rodriguez. At the time, I had not read The Last Ronin. Then I went home, picked up The Last Ronin, and looked at the cover, and it says, with introduction by director Robert Rodriguez.
He introduced Last Ronin in the comics, and he has inked some of the comics in the past. He's a big fan.
He's a huge fan, from what I understand. All of his kids are fans, and they were given an advance copy of the first issue.
Speaks so highly of what he would do with this movie.
Yeah, I think he would not only put his spin on it, like stylistically, directing, all that, and not only like, his history with Sin City, but also he did he does the Spy Kids movie, so he knows how to do like the animation side of it as well. Bring that in. He also knows how to work within a budget, very, very low budget. El Mariachi is very low budget. I think he did like $5,000 and made an amazing movie that ended up being a whole series. So he says, yeah, sure.
Probably closer to 10, but even then, I get it.
Yeah. But I just think that not only would he visually be able to pull it off, but the love for the source material is there.
I think he would hold a great deal of respect for what he was doing.
Yeah, and not only want to make something that he would want to see as far as that goes, but would make Eastman and Laird happy, and on top of that, his kids.
Well, apparently they're friends. At least him and Kevin Eastman are friends.
Yeah,
and I like he's going to be vying for a slot. He's hey, consider me, throw my name in the hat, because him being such a big fan, and I think stylistically he has the right feel, and he does good action. So you said it, and I was like, yeah, I'd be.
Just picture Planet Terror from Grindhouse.
I would say
swap out a couple characters for Ninja Turtles.
I would say Guillermo, Stilinski, and Rodriguez would be my top 3 choices. One of those,
I'd be fine with any 3 of them.
Yeah, I would too.
Or with any of those 3, rather. Yeah,
where I would love to see it go. We don't know. We don't really know. Yeah. I mean, it just started. It just got greenlit. It's just. I mean, it's not even. I think slated for 2026 release. So we've got a little time. But for those of you who've read Last Ronin, what do you think? Who would you guys like to see direct this? What kind of style would you like to see? Give us some of your thoughts. Drop some comments down.
Comment below.
We have a while, and of course, as is always the case, we will keep you updated when we learn new stuff. But it was one of those things. Matt and I were just huge fans of the Turtle series. We knew we wanted to talk about this, and we kind of wanted to go over some of the existing Turtle franchise. It was just really cool when we received the word that they were going to make this and R-rated. When you consider, my kids and I just watched Logan again last night because we're in preparations for the upcoming Deadpool Rain. My daughter had not seen Logan, and my son and I sat down and watched it with her again. And they've proven now that these R-rated, the thing is we are their target audience. So we are old enough to go see R-rated movies. And if they're good enough, we're going to take our kids. Not like our 6-year-olds, but we'll take our 13 and 14-year-olds to see it. So they figured that out, and it allows them to do the stories proper, the way they should be done. So I'm really excited about it. Matt, I know you're excited about it too. We might have to fly to one another state just to go see it together.
That'd be fantastic.
Really
we should do that.
Yeah, guys. I mean, if you want to have stuff spoiled, it's out there. I just recommend picking up the trade and reading it. If you're, spoil it that way, actually read it. But let us know. Let us know if you guys are excited about it. We're pretty stoked about it, and who you would like to see directed. Let us know that too.
Yeah, and for the record, there's a lot in this story that we didn't even discuss, and just go back and just read it. Do yourself a favor. Just pick the book up and read it.
Pick the book up.
Pick the book up.
I recommend it. It's wonderful. It's a good way to close off something that's still continuing. They closed off a series knowing that the series wasn't really done. It's kind of like The Dark Knight Returns. It's very much how they would end it, even though they know it's not ending. I know that sounds weird, but that's how it works. And they
closed a chapter.
Yes, and started a new book, which I'm really into the new thing that they have started. And I don't want to spoil anything, but they end this one and start something new. And you've picked that up as well. I've started reading it. That's The Lost Years, which talk about the lost years as well as what is going on currently. There's some great characters introduced in this. This is the one thing we will spoil. There's another Casey. Casey's daughter, Casey, and she's awesome. I would love to know who they're going to get to play her. That would be really cool. I'd love to know who they're going to get to play all these people. Yeah, casting is something we should have done. We'll do a short casting.
We'll do a casting.
See. Me and you will hop on and do a casting. So, well, guys, we thank you for visiting us here on Real Talk once again. If you haven't checked out our first episode, we talk about Blumhouse and the upcoming reboot of Bleach and why we think it would or wouldn't work. So you might want to check that out. Thanks everybody who has visited the channel and subscribed. We really appreciate that. Subscribing is really cool, and we think you're cool when you do it. Liking and sharing is really cool too. Everybody's got to beg for that here on the YouTube, but maybe if you just do it, I don't have to beg, and then you're just really cool for that too. But we appreciate you guys coming. That's really what we got this week. Matt, do you have any closing thoughts before we let the fine folks at home go?
All I got to say is, just like us, you two are twisted kids. Keep it real. Keep it real.
They're twisted kids and it's movie time. Real Talk.